For joining us. I'm going to start with you, MEC. Now, the recent tragic death of former SABC board member and businesswoman Hope Zinde, who died in the hands of her son, who's battling drug abuse. And we've also seen Joburg Mayor Parkstau and former MP Vytjie Mento coming out to state that their children have also been battling drug abuse. Just how widespread is this problem?
Thank you very much and good evening. It is indeed widespread, the challenge of drug abuse in South Africa, in Gauteng, and in quite a number of communities in Gauteng is actually widespread, and it is widespread in particular amongst young people, because we are informed that about 80% of those who are using drugs in our communities in Gauteng are actually young people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, you launched the rehab center today in Randfontein. Just paint a picture for us about what the center is all about.
Of course, the Randfontein Rehabilitation Center is about treatment of these young people who are taking all kinds of drugs. So they enter into a program called detoxification in the first instance, whereby they just take out all the forms of drugs out of their system. And secondly, there's a program called the decanting. That's where they get all kinds of treatment. This is medicinal treatment, it's therapeutic treatment, it's psychosocial treatment, etc., etc. And thereafter, what is more important for us, for the first time, we have a proper big halfway house, which is going to take care of the aftercare programs for the young people, so that when they are detoxified and treated, they shouldn't just go back home, because they can relapse very, very soon. So the aftercare program, halfway house, is meant, therefore, to then prepare them for reintegration into families and into their communities, but most importantly, provide them with skills so that they can actually be employed, or they can create their own jobs, because many of them are saying, we take drugs because we are unemployed, we have nothing to do at home.
That's actually the widespread reason. That's very interesting. And now, Kabelo, you led a march against drug abuse in Johannesburg today. Just what's the significance of such a march to South Africa?
Well, I mean, just start from the beginning. It was all inspired when our premier launched the anti-substance abuse social movement in March. And I just felt that, I just felt convicted. I've got 14 years clean time. I know what it feels like to be in the clutches of drug addiction. So it just made sense for me to lend a helping hand in amplifying the 26th of June. The 26th of June is International Drug Awareness Day. I believe a day that needs to be amplified even bigger than the 1st of December, which is World AIDS Day. If you remember, when we started making a lot of noise about HIV, when we started destigmatizing the virus, it's only then we started making strides in dealing with the HIV virus. I was actually happy to hear you say, I didn't know that our mayor has come out and said, he's also struggling with a relative who is struggling with substance abuse. We need to encourage people to come out more. We need to destigmatize that, you're not the only one suffering with a relative with substance abuse. And it's only then when we can own up. Because when we own up, we see the magnitude of the problem, and we can do something about it.
Are we doing enough, though, to deal with this scourge?
I was saying to Mama Nandi off air that, we were in town today, and it's possible to feel a bit overwhelmed that, the challenge is a mammoth one. But I believe that there is an undercurrent that really feels that something needs to happen in the country. I can definitely feel. I think it's the 10th time in a week that I've heard President Jacob Zuma actually speak about the importance of us dealing with as such. And I believe we are making strides, but we've got a big job ahead of us.
Yeah, very, very mammoth task ahead of us indeed. Now, MEC, so much time, so much energy, so much resources have been channeled towards such campaigns, such as the anti-HIV campaigns, anti-teenage pregnancy campaigns, but then we're seeing so little towards anti-drug abuse campaigns. Could it be that and this problem, I must say, that is slipping off our hands quite rapidly, could it be that we are neglecting this problem, or we're not doing enough to sensitize our society?
I do not think that we are neglecting the problem as such, and I think that we just need to strengthen the campaign, and we need to reach out to everybody. Kabelo has spoken about the Gauteng social movement campaign that the Premier has actually launched. So this is where we see role models like himself, celebrities, young people, because young people who are using drugs, you can see them how happy they are when they see the artists, the musicians being there, and some of them telling the stories that I was where you are once and now I'm a successful person. So they look forward really to being successful. So we're calling upon everybody in the community, beginning with their parents at home. The theme for today's International Day Against Drug Abuse is listen first. Because we as parents, we as families, as relatives, we need to listen more to the children, to the young people, before they can go out and actually cry out to their peers and get hooked into drug abuse. So we hope that we will pick up the campaign, but for us as well, we were saying with the Deputy Minister, it's important also to prevent it, because it's about prevention, it's about early detection and doing something about it, and then it's about rehab and treatment, and most importantly, it's about aftercare as well as reintegration into the communities. I think we're not doing much in as far as prevention is concerned, because if you nip it in the bud, you prevent it at an early age. The young persons were telling us that it started school. They sell them these muffins with a drug inside. So unknowingly, they eat and they get high and they get happy and they want more and more of these muffins. So we need to expand the prevention programs at schools. The church must be involved. You know, the spiritual leaders must be involved in the campaign. Everybody must be involved in the campaign.
I'm actually glad you touched on the issue of reintegration into society of these people. And more often, drug users relapse and going back to the same communities, faced with the same problems. How do you deal with such?
Indeed, you know, relapsing is part of the healing process. In Randfontein, I met a young person who said to me, MEC, I was there when you were in Dr. F&F in Tshwane. And now I'm here because I've relapsed. It's part of the treatment of the healing process. So we take them through the process again. So indeed, I mean, if you work together with the communities, I think that we can deal with this particular problem.
Right. Now, Kabelo, you started experimenting with drugs because you were idle and bored. Could this be the same reason why people do drugs?
Yeah, I mean, being idle and bored is one of the many reasons. You know, my theory is I feel, you know, kids either undergo trauma or really can't deal with, you know, what society throws at them. And drug addiction, substance abuse, especially on my part, was a self-medication of some sort, where you're not able to deal with the pressures and cope, and you just feel like self-medicating, and it was a form of escapism. And I see the same thread in the different addicts that I speak to. So to try and narrow it down to one thing why people use, I think it's impossible. People use for a myriad of reasons.
When you talk of self-medication, now do put me in the picture. Are you talking about the lack of support structures? No,
self-medication meaning whatever demon you're faced with. The pain becomes you know, so hard to deal with that you self-medicate. You take cocaine, ecstasy, marijuana, or whatever your drug of choice is, so that you can escape your reality. That's what I'm trying to say. Now,
dude, you're clearly a changed man. I mean, and rehab taught you to explore your weaknesses, isn't it?
100%. And that's one of the main things I speak to. I mean, I'm involved with a lot of interventions, and I always challenge the addict to make a fearless moral inventory. And when you make a fearless moral inventory and look within, and stare down the giants that are taunting you and saying you can't be who God has created you to be, it requires a lot of strength. So, yeah.
Now, MEC, back to you. It appears that this problem is quite prevalent at the school level. What sort of interventions, if at all, have you put in place to address this?
Yes, as part of this social movement against drug abuse, as I said, it started at the school level. What we do, we work with the safety department, who is then working very closely with the South African Police Service. And, you know, the CPFs, they go to the schools and they actually, you know, check the young ones, the bags, as to whether they are having these drugs in their bags or not. So this is something that we do. We are now also beginning to talk to the hawkers, those who are selling lollipops and sweets, and to check if they are not selling drugs to our little ones. But we have a program that's called Gimoja. It's a campaign that says, I'm okay as a young person, even if I'm not using drugs. We have buses, for example, that go to schools, buses that go to communities, that have a message that say no to drugs. And we also have books as well that are teaching our young ones. We just need to distribute them more. A book that says say no to drugs. And it teaches young people the types of drugs, you know, the effect of drugs in their system and what happens to them. It just destroys their lives. So these are some of the programs that we are embarking on.
Now, MEC, South Africa has been ranked one of the highest consumers of alcohol in the world. Now, this is by all means quite problematic, because you find a person saying that I'm not a drug addict, I'm just an alcoholic, because they can't draw the line between alcohol and drugs. And they actually classify it as two different issues.
I mean, indeed, if you take alcohol excessively, you're drugging yourself. It is an equal challenge that we are also dealing with. So when we deal with drug abuse, we do not only deal with those drugs like your nyawupe, your ket, you know, all these forms of cannabis, heroin, etc., etc. But we also, you know, speak against alcohol, severe or excessive alcohol abuse. So we are told that if you have to live a healthy life and to take alcohol, it mustn't be, for men, it mustn't be more than 2 glasses of whatever kind of alcohol a day. For women, it mustn't be more than 1 glass. I don't know why the discrimination between men and women, but this is how it is. So if you take more than 2 glasses as a man a day, it means you know, you're tending to becoming an alcoholic, right, and you're drugging yourself.
Now, the question actually, I'll put it short. The question is, there is a soft approach towards alcohol. What is the government doing to sensitize the community that alcohol is actually a drug?
You know, you will see with the adverts, it is written that, you know, alcohol is for certain ages of people, but also those who go to the taverns. The taverns, there are rules and laws, you know, that are made by the Department of Economic Development, that they shouldn't be selling alcohol, you know, to the young ones. But I think we need to really ensure that these messages, you know, go through to as many young people as possible.
Kabelo, you are in the music industry.
Yes, sir.
Do you think your peers in the industry are doing enough to sort of sell the message to South Africans about the dangers of alcohol abuse, drug abuse?
No, I don't think we're doing enough to call a spade a spade. But, you know, even though my peers are blessed with a platform to, you know, to get messaging out there, you know, we should never also forget that they're also, you know, young men and women who are, you know, following their careers, you know, and we just gotta trust that, you know, the pin does drop, that
right,
the platform that they have influences, you know, many young people. And yeah, that's what we just got to trust will happen. You know, I'll speak for myself and say, you know, I've put my hand up and have realized that, you know, the platform that I have, you know, influences these young ones, and hence, you know, I'm here tonight.
Right. And according to some, there's actually a link between quality of life and substance abuse. I mean, I'm talking about low-income communities enduring the brunt of the issue, 100%. Being on the receiving end of this.
100%. Quality of life is linked to substance abuse. I mean, all I can just... a man who can't provide for his family, a man who doesn't have a job, you know, dealing with the stress. It's not an excuse to go out and abuse alcohol, but it happens. And it comes back to my point of self-medication and a form of escapism. So, you know, the drug issue is linked to the many other issues that we are struggling with in our society. The drug issue is linked to HIV, is linked to health, is linked to jobs, and so on and so forth.
Right. MEC, any programs in the workplace perhaps to tackle this?
In the workplace, essentially we're saying the employers, together with the employees, they really need to know, you know, what we are saying in terms of the campaign against drugs, and they must put up programs in place that can actually be implemented right where the people are, so that we together with the employers and the employees, the workers themselves, can be able to fight the scourge against drugs at the workplace. But most importantly for me, it's in the family. That's where it starts, as well as at the primary schools as well. All right. Yes.
Kabelo, final words?
You know, I grew up in a South Africa where being an impimpi was a bad thing, because we had to, you know, protect our own against, you know, the rulers of the old dispensation. But I was appealing to young people today. We've taken over this thing of not being an impimpi into the new dispensation as well. And I'm saying we shouldn't, because we need to speak out We know exactly where these people who's selling. We know exactly who's creating these drugs. There's many platforms where people can report cases anonymously and not know who they are. So let's blow the whistle on these people who are making the drugs, doing the illicit trafficking of drugs, and let's be impi and phone the police and let them come and do their job.
Fair enough, Kabelo, but then the problem is overexposure to such places. In the townships especially, you go to every street corner, there's a tavern, there's a bottle store, and like making people, or rather young people, susceptible to addiction.
It's a team effort, okay? There's civil society, there's the law enforcement agencies, and there's the people who are in charge of legislation. Everybody needs to really get around the table to really re-look at what we're faced with. I look at, people always go on about, the South African Constitution being the best in the world. The world is always going on about how our constitution is the best, but I don't see anybody replicating our constitution in the world. Right. So just like any corporate revisits their vision after 5 years, and I really believe that we need to revisit, our vision as a country, our constitution, because there's a disconnect somewhere.
Right. MEC, your final words?
All we can say indeed is that if parents do observe that their little ones are starting to engage in drugs, there's a number for them to call, which is 0800 428 428. There are social workers who can actually listen to them. Those social workers can be able to assist them as well. So all those initiatives are aimed at assisting parents to cope with the situation, but to address the particular problem at home.
Now, final question, MEC, how do parents cope with the situation? I mean, if two parents in a household are alcoholics, obviously that exposes the children to alcoholism.
Absolutely. That's where the relatives should come in.
Community.
The community must also come in. It takes a village really to raise a child. But when the parents are involved, also affecting the child, is a bigger problem. So we really are calling out for the local drug action committees that are found in each and every community. In fact, we want to have a local drug action committee in each and every ward. For the whole of South Africa, we must have about 65,000 local drug action committees. These are the people who must help families, who must also be engaged right in the communities. But we as government do have programs to assist the families, because if the family is weak, the community is weak.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people take drugs. So that's why we have these family programs.
Right.
Yes.
MEC for Social Development, Nandi Mayathula-Khoza, and Kabelo Mabalane, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on SABC. Great chatting to you.
Thank you,
Thank you so much.
Well, that was Gauteng Department of Social Development MEC Nandi Mayathula-Khoza and anti-substance abuse activist Kabelo Mabalane talking to us about their fight against drug and substance abuse. Time now for a short break. More news when we return.